Hello there everyone, I'm Christina of CSLdesigns and today I'm going to show you how to make this laced Kumihimo necklace, and this is what mine looks like. So I'm using a satin cord here and I just chose to use a purple colour. Quite like the way how that is bright, and also against the silver beads that I chose to use to add in. So some of the beads we add in while we make the braid and others we add in after to get this laced effect. You can see goes around like that on the edge, and this is obviously the feature of the necklace. Now the rest on the sides here I've just made the braid, continue the braid from the middle, and on the ends I just finished it off using ribbon ends and attached findings to them. So this is the necklace. Now I previously made a bracelet that actually can match it if you want to use the same materials, and that looks like this. So you can see you get that same effect, but here we're just doing it on both sides and only doing it in a straight braid, so obviously not getting a curve into it. So I already have a tutorial for this, but if you want to learn how to make the necklace for it, then keep watching. So these are the materials that we're going to need. First of all, what I have here is my round Kumihimo disc. Now it doesn't matter whether you're using the round one or the square one, because this braid structure can be made on either one of them. And then I'm using this 1mm satin cord to make the braid with, but you can easily use a different kind if you want to. And then I'm using two different sizes of beads here. First of all, I'm using these 4mm rounds. These are going to get incorporated into the braid while we're making it, and you want to make sure that the 4mm rounds here have holes that are large enough to take two lengths of the cord through. And then I have some 3mm rounds as well that we're going to add in after we make the braid for the embellishment, and both of these are silver metal spacer beads. I then have these ribbon ends here to finish off the ends of the braid with, and then I'm going to attach my findings, so my lotto claw clasp and extended chain to them, using some jump rings. So let's get it all together and let's get started. And then we'll need to cut some lengths of our cord. So what I have here is 4 lengths of about 3.5 meters each, so there's quite long lengths, but obviously it's a necklace we're making. But also what's actually going to happen is I'm going to make sure all the ends are even, then I'm going to fold all the cords over in half, so put the ends together to find the midpoint here. So I just tie a regular knot on that midpoint to hold all the cords together, and I just put a piece of scrap wire around that to help pull it down through the disc. So what that means is that all the cords have now been folded over in half and doubled over, so we get 8 working lengths. So I then took all my cords here and attached them onto my disc, and what I've done is I've taken that knot in the middle with the wire around it and put it down through the hole in the center of the disc, and you have that wire coming out of the back. I'm going to use that to hold on to and help pull the braid down through the disc. And then what we actually have now, instead of the 4 lengths of cord, they've now doubled over, so we actually have 8, which we need for the braid structure. And I just distributed them like this on the disc, so I have 2 on the top side there, 1 on either side of that top dot, and then 2 opposite, 1 on either side of the bottom dot, and on the sides they're exactly the same, 2 pairs opposite each other. And it's also the exact same principle if you're using the square disc. You just have 1 pair down the top side in the middle and 1 pair on the bottom side in the middle, and the same on the sides. So it's the exact same setup and technique regardless what disc you're using. Now then, to actually make the braid, first of all we're going to make a long section just using the cord and not adding in any beads or anything. So to start out with, what I'm going to do is take the top right cord and release that from the slot, then bring it over the middle here and then towards the left side of the disc, and then into the slot right below the pair on the left side there. So I'm taking the top right one towards the left side, just below the pair on the side, and then I'm taking the top left one and bringing that towards the right side and placing it into the slot right below the pair on the side there. And then I'm taking the bottom right one, bringing that over the middle, again towards the left side of the disc, and that goes into the slot right above the pair on that left side. And then I'm taking the left one out of the bottom ones and bringing that to the right side, again above the other ones and into the slot. So that's now moved the top and the bottom cords. Then what we need to do is work on the sides. So it doesn't really matter what side you start with. I'm just going to start with the left one. So I take out of the 2 middle cords there, the ones that are right next to the dot on either side, I'm taking the top one, bringing that down, staying on this left side of the disc if you imagine that you have a line down through the center. And then I'm taking the bottom one and bringing it up and staying also on the left side of that dot in the middle. So that's exactly opposite the one we just placed on the bottom. And on the other side, I'm taking the top one out of the 2 middle ones, bringing that down and staying on the right side where the cord is coming from. So now we have that pair on the bottom again, and then I'm taking the bottom one of those two middle ones and bringing that to the top, and then we also have the top pair back in place. And then what you can see here, the only thing that's different now is that we have a big gap in the middle on either side, so all we need to do is close that up. So I'm just going to take one cord at a time and move them one slot closer to each other, so that now makes that pair the same as the original on the side there. And then we do the same on the other side, and now we're back in the original setup with the cords. And that's basically one round, because what we need to do now is repeat this over and over again. So just to show you again, I start with the top right one, bring that out to the left, make sure to place it below the pair on the left. Then I take the top left one, bring it to the right. So we're also always going opposite. You can see I took the right one, went to the left, and then I took the left one and went to the right. And then we need to do the bottom ones in the same way. So the right one goes to the left above all the cords on the side now, and then the left one goes to the right. Now we need to move the cords on the side right there in the middle. So the top one of those two middle ones comes down, but that now stays on that same side of the disc, if we imagine that line in the middle. And then the bottom one goes up. And then we have the ones on the opposite side do the same thing. The top one of the two middle ones comes down, and then the bottom one goes up. And the only thing left to do is close up the gaps on the sides. So we then have all the cords back in the original setup, and we can then just repeat this again. So I now kept braiding here, and then we're going to have the braid coming out the back of the disc. It looks a little something like this. So this is going to be one side of the necklace, and it's going to determine how long your full necklace is going to be. Because we're going to make this side, then we make the middle, and then the other side we make the same as this. So my length here is about 25 centimeters. So obviously if you want your necklace shorter or longer, you're going to make these side braids shorter or longer depending what you want. But then you're also going to have to adjust the length of your cords. So now that we got to that midpoint, I'm going to start getting my beads ready. So I have one here to show you how to add them into the braid as well. So we're just going to continue, because it's the exact same technique we'll be using. We're just going to add some beads in along the way. So the beads that I have ready are the 4mm ones we're going to add into the braid like I mentioned. So we're going to start out with the next round in the exact same way. So the top right one goes to the left, and the top left one goes to the right. Then we'll take the bottom ones here and do the same thing, so you can see the exact same technique as I showed you before. And then we need to start on the sides. Now this is where it's a bit different. I'm going to take this left side first of all, do the same thing, and this is going to stay the same as well as before, just like that. But then here on the right side, I'm actually going to add my bead in. So I'm going to start out by taking the top cord out of those two middle ones on the right, and then bring that down, and then I'm going to take the bottom one of those two, and this is actually the cord I'm going to add my bead to. So I'm just getting to the very end. And then what I've already done as well is I've prepared the ends a bit. I've just singed them with a lighter because it's a synthetic cord that I'm using. So I can do that, and it's going to make it easier to get through the beads. So I'm just going to add my bead onto this cord before I move it in the braid. And I'm letting it drop all the way down. And then I release the cord and just keep dropping it down there, pushing it down if you need to. So it goes underneath the cords here in the middle, and in between those two that are going out to the side. And then you want to make sure as you're bringing this up that that bead stays underneath this cord. And basically that cord going out to the side, the top one, is trapping it in place. You can see it right there. So that's the first bead added. And then I'm closing up the gaps again, and then this is a complete round. So the only difference here was really adding in that bead, otherwise it's the exact same technique. Now what I'm going to do is start the next round, and you can see there the cord that I just took is the one with the bead on. So just make sure that that bead stays in the place we want it to as you're moving that. Otherwise we just complete another full round, again this time without adding in a bead. So just use the exact same technique. And I'm actually going to do this twice. So I made a round where I added my bead in, And then now I'm going to make 2 rounds without adding in a bead. So now I made those 2 full rounds without beads after that first one that I added in. I'm going to start another round in the exact same way. And then this time I'm going to add in a bead, also in the same way that I did before, but just to show you a bit up close, exactly where it needs to sit. So we're just continuing with the same technique here, doing the sides, and on this side here, so I'm going to add in the bead. I'm just adding it to my right side every time. So I bring the top one down first of all, and then the bottom one out of those 2 middle ones is where I add my bead. So I grab the bead, add it onto the cord before I release it, and then let the bead drop all the way down as I'm also releasing the cord from the slot. You can see there, if the bead doesn't drop down by itself, just give it a little push so it goes underneath that cord going out to the side, the top one, as you're then bringing this cord up into the top slot, and then it's trapped right underneath there. Then all there's left to do is close up the gap. So again, we get the cords back in the original position, and then you just start a new round again. So bring that over, and you see, just make sure that that bead stays underneath. If it seems to pop out a little bit, just push it back down. Like this, and again, you now want to make 2 full rounds without beads and before you add in the next one. So now I kept adding in those beads there, and then you'll see in the back that the braid is coming out with those beads just on the one side of the braid, and that also, because we're only adding the beads to that one side, gives it a natural curve to the braid, so it's going to be perfect for a necklace and it's going to lay lovely on the neckline. Now what I've added in here is a total of 11 beads, so just for reference, it's going to give it a nice section there of length across the middle of the necklace. But now obviously we need to go back and finish it off, so really what we've got to do now is just go back to braiding the same technique but without adding beads in, to get the same length of braid as we have in the beginning. So when I'm then done braiding the other side of the necklace as well, it's time to take the whole piece off the disc, and you just do that by holding on to the end of the braid, releasing your cords and tying a knot there, just to make sure the braid doesn't unravel. So here is then the finished braid. We have these beads in the middle creating this lovely curve, and then obviously the braids up the sides of the necklace. So then what we need to do now is add in the embellishment here in the middle. And to do that, we need to cut another 2 lengths of about 30 centimeters each. We're going to be using these separately to add in the 3mm rounds. What I've also done with these is on one end, on each of them, I just prepared them, so made a little needle there by singeing the end and then rolling it between my fingers. And that's going to make it much easier to get through the beads in the braid, but also adding in the new beads. So then the first thing we need to do is attach these 2 cords to the braid that we've already prepared. And I have that here, so I'm just going to start from one side of the beads. It doesn't really matter what side you start from. I'm just going to start from the left side here when you're looking at the braid. And then what I'm going to do as well is just get a pair of round nose pliers, because we actually need to attach the cords by going through the edge of the braid. So first of all, I'm going to start on the outside of that first bead, and then you're going to find on the edge here you have these little loops where the cord is coming around, obviously in the braid structure. And then I'm actually going to take my round nose pliers and go through just one of those loops there. It's just to kind of widen it a little bit, make it easier to get your cord through. Take the pliers out, and then I take my cord and then push it through the same place, you can see there. And then I want to pull it all the way through, so I just leave a short little tail towards the back. You can hold on to that if you want to. And then I'm going to take my round nose pliers again and move on to the next loop that's one step closer to the bead, and then open that up a little bit, and then straight away take the same cord. Again, I'm using the end where I made that little needle. It makes it easier because it's hard, rather than say trying to get a soft cord through there. That's going to be difficult if not impossible. And then pulling that through, and because we're following the braid structure as well, because this is the front of the braid, is then going to lay and basically slot into the edge nicely. You can see it's pretty much going to just blend in, so you won't really be able to see it. And then because I'm there, this cord now needs to go through that bead. But before we do that, I'm just going to attach the other one just while we have a bit more space. So I'm just going to go after the bead, the first bead, and then grab the very first loop there, put my pliers through it, the round nose pliers, just find your way, and then grab the other cord and then put that through there, and otherwise just pull it all the way till you have a short little tail again. Then this one needs to also go through the next one. Just open up that next loop like that, and then bring the cord around following the pattern on the edge of the braid structure, and then put it through that next one. And again, we then pull this tight. That then slots into the edge and also just blends in nicely. So there you go. You can see the two cords are now attached and you can pretty much not really notice them. So then they're both pretty much in the same position. So what that means now, both are right in front of a bead and they both actually need to come through the bead as well. That means I'm just going to do one at a time. Just grab the end, go right through the bead in the braid, the first one. Again, that's also where it really helps having that singed end on the cord. You can see it goes through and it's pretty much just completely blending in. And the other one also go through that next bead right after where that's coming out from. It can be a little bit difficult to get hold of sometimes, so I'm just going to grab it with my pliers and pull it through until that's also sitting there nicely. And then now the cords are in the position we can start adding in the 3mm rounds and get this pattern that we want. So we then need to get a 3mm rounds out. So I have one here, and then obviously we need to attach them to our cords. So I'm just going to work with one at a time. So that means I'm just going to start with the bottom one here. So the top one I'm just going to get out of the way for now, because we're going to go back to that. And then on this cord, I want to add my bead. And what we're going to need to add here is a total of 7. So I've already added the others. And then I'm just going to push them all the way down. So they're sitting right after that 4mm that's already in the braid. And they're going to then come around and start forming that pattern. So what I'm then going to do is I've added my 7 beads. Then I'm going to skip the next bead in the braid and go through the next one after that. So in this case it's the third one. Just put your cord right through there and just grab the end and pull it through, and you'll be able to see that these beads are then going to sit nicely, basically just forming around that second bead and creating a little pattern. And again, I'm just going to leave that second cord out for now, just work with one at a time. Then what I'm going to do is add another 7 beads to the same cord. And once I've done that, push them all the way down the cord again to sit right next to that bead that the cord's coming out from. And then again, skip one bead in the braid and go through the next one after that. And pull the cord all the way through. So again, these beads end up sitting just like the first ones did, basically framing that bead in the braid in between. So now what you want to do is keep going like this, adding 7 beads, skipping one in the braid and going through the next one until you haven't got any more beads in the braid to go through. So now I made it all the way to the other side there, and you can see I don't have any more beads to go through in the braid. And then you can see what it looks like. So really this is kind of a nice look as well. I think you could easily leave it like this if you prefer, but obviously I'm going to use the other beads as well to make that kind of laced effect. But it's just an option. If you want to leave it like this, then obviously you just wouldn't use that second cord and just stop here. But then what we need to do now is go back to the other cord, because I'm just going to leave this cord for now and deal with them both at the end once we got this one to that end as well. So we need to go back here, and then I'm just going to get this one out of the way. And then this one is already coming out from that bead. So first of all, what I want to do is I just want to get this up through this set of beads already, so it's coming out towards the top. That's just how I like to work. And then we need to load another 7 beads onto this cord, And again, I'm then pushing them all the way down once you have them onto your card. Then what we need to do is basically the same thing that we did with these, but because we already have the first level or row of beads added in, I just want to pay attention to how I do this. So the way I want it to be is this card is coming out towards the top. I then want it to go around the back, and then we again skip one bead in the braid, but basically we just go through the next free one, and I flip these towards the front, so I go through this behind them and then pull it all the way through. You can just help take in some pliers here. Just get hold of it and then pull it through, and then obviously pull all the card until the beads are then sat nice and close together. So now they wrap around in this lacy effect. And now what I want to do is bring this up through the next little loop of beads there to again come out at the top. So every time I want to add in beads, I want to make sure that my card is coming out on the top of the piece. Then here we're in a place where we need to add in another 7 beads to then basically go through to the next one. And that works in exactly the same way. So I'm pushing the beads down, and then we need to go through the next bead in the braid that hasn't been used for adding in new beads here, but just make sure you go around from the front here towards the back, and then you go through the bead to get that laced effect, and just pull it all the way through. Again, just need to grab it with my pliers, get a little bit of a better grip, and pull it, and then straight away come up through this section. So again, the cord comes out towards the top or the front of the piece, and then it's going to look a little something like this. So you can see you get this laced effect. So keep doing this all the way until you use that last bead over here and we can't go through anymore. So then I made it all the way to the other end with both of the cords there. Then what's left to do is really finish them off, and basically we do that in the same way as we started out. So that means we're just going to use one at a time. This one is coming out from that second to last bead, so I'm just going to take my round nose pliers. I want to make them blend in along the edge again. So you can just flip this back if you need to. And I need to go through and just open up that very first loop after the bead. Just get my pliers through, just to open it up a bit like that. So I can then take the cord itself and get through the same place. I can just find it, there we go. And then just pull that through. So it's now coming straight out from the bead and then going through that first loop after the bead in the braid, like that. And then what we do is just put it down through here, that last section of beads, and then we just want to get it through the next loop as well. So this is basically just how I showed you in the beginning. Go through the next loop, open it up with your pliers, first of all, to make it easier to get through. And then you can get your cord through as well. So we're going through the next loop with this cord, and then once you've done that, you want to do the exact same thing with the last one, obviously. Just make sure the cords are pulled tight enough so all the beads here, we don't have any excess cords showing. But then do the same thing with this one, and make sure to go through 2 loops, and then they'll be in the same place as the initial tails there. And then all that's left to do is actually get rid of the excess. So what I just want to mention as well is on this end here, you'll find that the ends of the cord is actually coming out towards the front. What we need them to do is come out towards the back, so we can get rid of them in the same way as the other end. So instead of going through, I've gone through all the edge there twice already, and then instead of going around the edge again because it's going to come out towards the front, I'm just going to go right next to where it's coming out and go straight through the braid like that. So you can see the pliers there coming out at the back, and basically just open up a hole, something a bit like that, and it's just to be able to get the cord through and push the cord through that hole. So you can see it's then coming out towards the back, right through the braid instead of along the edge. And then you just pull this down. Make sure you do it as close to where the cord is coming out from, so that when I pull this tight, you can see again that pretty much just blends in and you don't really notice it at all. So now they're both coming out at the back of the braid, and they are in the beginning as well. So now to get rid of the excess cords there, I'm just going to show you on one because it's the same on all of them. So just start with this one. You can see we have that tail coming out. Then I'm going to get my scissors and cut off the excess, but make sure I leave just a short little tail. And what I'm going to do is singe them down. Now you can do this if you're using a synthetic cord like I am. If you're using a natural cord, or if you prefer anyway, you can actually use some glue. So just glue around the end and then cut off the excess. But here, I'm going to cut it off so I have just a short little tail left, of a few millimeters or so, like that. Get rid of that. And then I'm going to get my lighter. So obviously be careful because we're working with a naked flame here, so it does get hot. You can see that just that little end right there. So what I want to actually do is singe that down so it melts. And as soon as it's pretty much melted all the way down, I'm going to push it down against the braid. You can just use the actual lighter to do that. And then if you do it properly, you're going to be able to feel that it's nice and smooth because it's been blended in and pushed against the braid there. But then also this seals it in place so the cord won't come out or anything. So it's nice and secure. So this is what you want to do in all of them, and obviously that's why I wanted all the cords to come out at the back. So whatever little bit you'll be able to see is at the back of the piece, and you won't be able to see it while you wear it. So this is then what the necklace looks like here with the beads added in for that laced effect. And I just finished off the cords there on the back, and you can barely see them, and also like I said, it's going to be worn towards the back anyway. So what I just want to mention is here I used those 7 beads every time I added in a new section of beads. If you like this look, then you want to use that amount. If you want it a bit more open than this, what you can do is use 8 beads instead, and it'll make these loops and the laced effect a bit more open. That's completely personal preference. But then what is left to do now is finish off the ends of the braid there, obviously, so we can attach our clasp. So just finish them off using ribbon ends. I already have a tutorial that shows how to do that, so please feel free to check that out. I'm going to put a link in the description box down below. Otherwise, finish off the ends, attach your findings, and then you have your finished necklace. So I now finished off the ends of my braid here. You can see I attached my ribbon ends and also my findings. So the necklace is now ready to wear. And then this is what it looks like. So I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I have loads of the tutorials on my channel, so feel free to check them out. And I would also love to see anything you make from my tutorials, so you can find me on Instagram. You can always tag me on there if you want to show me what you've done. But otherwise, I really hope you enjoyed this one, and thank you very much for watching.